What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? Jeff with the Hill Brothers, back with new edition of Tar Heel Olympic Spotlight. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all's patience. Missed last week, like I said, put out a message on socials, on our socials. Volleyball tournament didn't. When I got back, didn't have time. Being gone all weekend, didn't have time to really do prep as I was going, and I just it would have been really hard to get all the prep done and catch up on all the notes, and I wasn't going to put out something that I hadn't prepared for. So it's just I'd rather skip it. I'd rather skip a week than put out an unprepared less than product. So anyway, but I'm back. No volleyball tournament this weekend. This past weekend, no volleyball tournament next weekend. So no problems there. Not another one for my daughter until the end of the month. So yeah, good. A lot of stuff going on. I am going to take a moment, if you would allow me to, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do it. Carolina family lost a couple weeks ago. Lost somebody who means the world, especially especially to the football program. And I know this is an Olympic Spotlight, but it's Carolina family regardless. Mr. James Sperling, long time athletic staff member, basically director of Kenan Stadium, and just the nicest man. I met him a few times. In passing, met him a few times, and then, in passing, would passing by, always had a big old smile on his face. I'm sure you've heard the stories. Everybody who interacted with him has all these great stories about Mr. James and just how special of a person he was. So I feel like I'd be really remiss if I just didn't take a second. And I just want to take a second and just to have a quick moment of silence for James Sperling. Thank you for indulging me that. They did have a celebration of life Sunday for him today, as I'm recording, for him and Carmichael. Volleyball practice I was not able to go, which I really wished I could have. But anyway, thank you for indulging me that. And prayers for his family, continued prayers for his family, and as well the Carolina family who especially had contact and interaction with Mr. Sperling on a day-to-day basis. But okay, I'm going to move on now, best as I can after that, with stuff going on this week. Monday, early part of the week, and I've kind of shifted how I present stuff and the order I do things. I'm just, again, I'm still kind of evolving. I think it's the 13th episode of the Olympic Spotlight that I've done. I'm still evolving a little bit. And sometimes week by week, I just change the feel and how I feel like going and the order I feel like doing stuff. So this week, especially with seasons now and getting going and everything, Mondays and Tuesdays, a lot of times are poll. A lot of those are polls come out for the sports, as well as the ACC doing honors as far as player of the week and stuff like that for the various sports. So for Monday, this past Monday, the new Road to Nationals NCAA gymnastics rankings came out. Carolina fell one spot. We fell one spot to number 13 in those rankings. Got some gymnastics going up that we'll talk about going on this week. A couple different things. Women's basketball, the new AP Top 25 Women's College Basketball poll came out, and on the strength of the wins, especially the win over State at State, up 4 spots to number 21. Women's lacrosse stayed number 1 in the IWLCA coaches poll. men's lacrosse stayed number 8 in the USILA men's coaches poll. And that's all stuff the things that came out on Monday. Tuesday, the new NWCA men's wrestling coaches poll came out. Carolina stayed number 13. Last week we didn't cover it. I know the week before that we had the we had basically 2 straight losses. We had the state loss, the pit loss, which I talked about, and the disappointment that I had over those. But what I missed covering was a win over Duke, and a good win over Duke. And so wrestling stayed number 13 in those polls. Also on Tuesday, the ACC announced the women's tennis honors for the week. Tatum Evans took home ACC Women's Tennis Player of the Week for this past week. So congrats, Tatum, on that. Women's basketball, on the strength of their performances, was announced as the USBWA Team of the Week. So congrats to the women's basketball team on that honor. Again, rolling with the ACC, the various ACC programs or ACC sports and their honors. On Tuesday, also, JoJo Valahovic was tabbed or honored as the ACC Gymnastics Co-Specialist of the Week, and that was on the strength of her 9.925 in the vault against NC State. What we didn't cover, because I missed it, was a loss to state in gymnastics, close loss to state in gymnastics. That's the third, that meet though, that Sunday meet against them was the third time this season that JoJo's had over or recorded 9.9 or higher on the vault. So definitely one of the better ones in the vault in the country. Rolling along again with those honors, ACC women's lacrosse attacker Darcy Felter was named ACC women's lacrosse offensive player of the week. Basically on the strength of her performance against number 19 James Madison the previous Friday. And again, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of awards, a lot of watch lists and awards and things like that. Men's lacrosse, actually the Tewaaraton Award watch list came out. The Tewaaraton, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially the lacrosse Heisman, and they, men's and women's award for that. The men's lacrosse team, it came announced on Tuesday by the Tewaaraton Foundation that the award watch list, our men's lacrosse team Carolina has 3 players on the watch list: Owen Duffy, Dominic Pietramala, and Brady Wambach. So congratulations to them on that. Carolina women's lacrosse, 5 on the list: Sam Forrest, Chloe Humphrey, who won it last year as a freshman, Betty Nelson, Liza Osborne, and Brooklyn Walker Welch were named to the women's Tewaaraton award watch list. So congratulations to all of them on that. Then rolling into Wednesday and some of the other things that come out. The NFHCA, which is the National Field Hockey Coaches Association, announced their national academic squad. And again, I told you I'm big on pointing out the academic award stuff when they come out, because it really highlights the dedication that our student athletes have in the classroom. We know about how hard it is for practices and everything, and to be able to keep honing their craft, but they also have to keep up their work in the classroom. So I always definitely got to make sure I call those out, as always, as I've said before. Siska Bruning, Caroline Golden, Hope Haynes, Reed Miller, Sylvie Notine, Grace Potabom, and Merritt Skubitz were announced, like I said, as NFHCA National Academic Squad honorees. Congratulations to them on that. Also on Wednesday, the preseason poll for rowing, which is the Pocock CRCA poll, came out. Carolina finished the season 25th in the final poll last season, unranked in the preseason poll. We'll see how that holds up, but figured I would mention that since we ended last season ranked number 25, and then our unranked coming in now. So see what that does. See how the season goes. That rowing season is going to kick off. Is going to kick off in a little bit. And we'll hit that on the countdown at the end. Also on Wednesday, the new clipped National Collegiate Golf rankings came out. Men's golf, Carolina men's golf, 16th in those rankings. Women's golf, 17th in those rankings. Women's tennis, the new ITA women's collegiate tennis rankings, team rankings came out. Carolina women's tennis still holding strong at number 3 in those. And then as far as some more ACC honors that came out of Wednesday, freshman Youssef Shamel earned his first career fencing accolade, and that is the ACC Men's Fencer of the Week. So had a really strong weekend in the Beguine Classic, helped Carolina go 5-0 against three ranked opponents actually in that. Number 9 Penn State, number 11 Boston College, and number 13 NYU. Knocked off all of those in route of the Carolina men's fencing, going 5-0 in that event. So again, shout out to Youssef on that. Hopefully, first of many to come. A lot of promise on him. He's also got some stuff on the national stage that I think we talked about a couple weeks ago, as far as some international competition. International competition stuff. So looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. More fencing stuff. There were some, and if you noticed last week, Alan and I actually launched the Full Count Carolina podcast, which is aimed at covering baseball and softball. So what I'm going to do, I know I had mentioned some of the baseball and softball awards and the preseason stuff, and I mentioned them, included them in the schedules here as I was talking about week to week stuff. I'm going to pare that back now and kind of move on and not go into it. So we'll be able to cover that in those episodes, which, we'll have our schedule is we're planning on recording those every Thursday evening, and they'll come out on Friday in advance of the weekend activities. So we'll be able to cover the previous weekend and midweek stuff for those sports, and then in advance of the weekend series that are coming up. So what I will say is both baseball opening weekend this past weekend, awesome. Had a doubleheader on Saturday because of the rain that was here on Sunday, but awesome games. 3-0 if you haven't been keeping up with it for baseball to start the season, with the sweep of a really good Indiana team. Offensively, they're touted to be, or supposed to be, pretty strong team offensively, and our pitching staff did work. But that's all I'll say. I won't go into it. And softball, 8-0 to start the season, and already going to shatter offensive records. And you can tell. I said something. I put something on Twitter the other day that said, with the staff, that all the offensive records that got broken, pretty much most of the Carolina offensive records, softball offensive records, got broken last year. And I said, I hope they're in pencil in the book, because they're going to get smashed this year. Already out to an incredible start, which included, 44 runs in 2 games, 24 to nothing victory and a 20-0 victory in doubleheaders on Saturday. So again, not going to dive into that, but I did want to mention it because I've kind of been blowing tooting the horn for those programs, especially because I really think that the new softball staff that's now their third year is really in their third year here now, has really got stuff rolling. But again, check out Full Count Carolina coming out on Fridays on the Hill Brothers YouTube channel. We'll cover that stuff more in depth, obviously, and be sure to check it out. New deal. Second edition coming out this week. First one came out this past Friday. On Thursday, we kicked off the February North American Cup for fencing championships for fencing. started on Thursday, taking place in Cincinnati, Ohio. And a former Tar Heel, Sophia Kovacs, actually won the championship in Division I women's saber. Current Carolina fencer, women's fencer Dagny Johnson finished 10th. That's her second straight top 10 finish at the North American Cup. So, awesome work there. Looking forward to continuing to see that. This North American Cup, we'll talk about it, rolled on throughout the weekend. And then ACC fencing, we'll talk about the fencing kicks into the ACC championships this coming weekend, but we'll talk about that in the schedule coming up later. That rolls us, again, that was Thursday. That rolls us into the next big thing on Thursday. The next big thing on Thursday, actually, before I say that, some more poll stuff that came out on Thursday or some more individual kind of stuff I wanted to mention for gymnastics. I talked about Monday, we fell to one spot to number 13 in the Road to Nationals NCAA gymnastic rankings. But of note, Carolina put out some more individual rankings on Thursday as it relates to the gymnastics team. As a team nationally, Carolina ranks number 9 in the vault, number 13 team, as we talked about, number 16 in the floor exercise, 19 on the balance beam, and number 21 in the nation on the uneven bars. Then individually on the national level, super freshman Sydney Seabrooks is tied for 6th on the floor exercise. Kaya Forbes, number 10 on vault. JoJo Balahovic, number 13 on vault. Talk about JoJo and the success she's had on the vault this year with her co-specialist this past week for gymnastics in the ACC. And then again, Sydney Seabrooks tied for number 21 in the nation on the all-around. So again, as I said, 13 in the nation. Carolina, also worth noting, coming into week 6 of the season, number 2 in the ACC in gymnastics at this point. But that'll roll into the rest of Thursday, which was a big deal. Carolina wins basketball back in Chapel Hill in Carmichael, midweek conference action, ranked number 21 in the country. Again, like I said, women's basketball. Carolina took on SMU and basically, had our way. And that's kind of really putting it nicely. 94-42 win over SMU. So if you're, the quick math will tell you 52 points. Worth noting, largest margin of victory for ACC victory for the program now. The many years of the program in the ACC, 52 points is the largest margin of victory for ACC in ACC action. Also noteworthy is it also made up Coach Bankhart's 400th career win. So that's, between Princeton and Carolina, 400 career wins. That notch for her against SMU. Renee Kelly, second game in a row she hasn't played. She's been out. But really it was, you can tell by the score, first quarter, 28-9, really kind of set the tone for us. Lainey Grant led the way, had 15 points. India Navarre added 14. Dominated on the glass, dominated the Mustangs on the glass, 50-20, and hit 12 threes. So that'll do it for you every time. I've been on the free throw percentage all year, so I'm going to mention it. I'm especially going to mention it because I've given them a hard time and I've rode them a little bit when it wasn't good. 16-20 against SMU for 80% from the line. 3-point percentage. I'm sorry, I take that back. I read the wrong one. That was SMU's. SMU was 16-20 for 80. We were actually better, 6 of 7 for 85.7% for us. And defensively, I just obviously you can tell by the score, we held them to 23% field goal shooting, 13% from 3-point range. That's huge. That's huge. While we shot 57.6% from the field, 46% from 3-point range, and again, like I said, 85.7, 86% from free throw line. So, good job on that. Like I said, I've ridden them and kind of been hard about the free throw woes that have cost us wins, quite frankly, in some of the other games. So I'm sure as heck going to call out when they do it when it's going well. So give them the kudos on that. That moves the Carolina women to 21-5 on the season, 10-3 in the ACC. SMU drops them to 8-17 overall, 1-12 in the ACC. So more women's basketball action as we go that took place today, Sunday, this past week as I'm recording again. Friday also that I wanted to note. Something else that came out on Friday from not related to action, but a couple things that were kind of noteworthy for the Olympic sports. Current Tar Heel Hope Munson was called up to the United States Under-20 national team training camp. So she's going to join, former Tar Heel just got drafted and is moving on. Linda Allmark going to join Linda at that training camp. Hope was a standout freshman this past season. So again, you like to see that. You like to see them getting that national team experience. It's only going to help. It's only going to make them better players, stronger players, and that's going to benefit Carolina. So congratulations to Hope on that. And then Friday, from again some more kind of student athlete scholar award stuff for field hockey. The NFHCA announced their Scholar of Distinction honors, which basically essentially is one of the higher deals. We talked about the academic squad. Scholar of Distinction is given when the student athlete holds a 3.9 GPA or higher, and that we did have a Tar Heel on the field hockey team that earned that honor, and she also, again, no big surprise, was part of the national academic squad that I talked about earlier, but that's Sylvie Notine. So congratulations to her on the strong work in the classroom, excelling on the classroom as well as on the field of competition. That's what it's all about. It's part of what makes Carolina is, that the academic part of, and as well as the excelling in both ways. So proud of her for that. Congratulations again. Rolling right into the weekend competition now, starting on Friday. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff went on in the world of the Olympic sports. Number one women's lacrosse traveled up to Syracuse to take on the number 13 Orange, and came out with a hard fought 13-9 win. So again, keeping rolling. I think we're currently the notes off of that game. Currently now that puts us on a 24-game winning streak. That's the longest in the nation, third longest in program history, and the 10th longest in NCAA history. So, Chloe Humphrey, highlights from that one. Chloe Humphrey notched her 20th hat trick in 24 career games. I'll say that again. 24 career games now, just starting her sophomore season. Like I said, Tewaaraton Award winner last year as a freshman. Again, lacrosse Heisman. As a freshman, won that award. 24 career games now, 20 hat tricks. That's special, folks. That's special. Kate Levy, hat trick, also first of her career, and she had 5 points, which are also her career high in her short career, brief career so far. And that's really it. I think we got Eliza Osborne notched a goal. Darcy Felter had a goal, and I think everybody pretty much contributed. I was trying to look through the high points real quick, like I said. So, rolling there still, and we'll talk about the up next as we go. We'll talk about the up next as we go. But yeah, congratulations on that win and that 24-game win streak now for women's lacrosse. Indoor track and field had some split action in 3-4 different places this coming week. 4 different places this past weekend. I think the squad was split up. But on Friday they were in Clemson, And then they were also at the David Hemmery Valentine, which is up in the Boston area, I do believe. Yep, in Boston. So it's in that's in the Boston area. Again, those are both the Tiger Pole invite and the David Hemmery Valentine invite are events that you're going to see them if you from year to year with indoor track and field. Those are events that take place every year. And as far back as I can remember, especially as I've been really keeping track and paying a lot of attention to all the stuff, the last 3 or 4 years, it's stuff. I know that we've been there the last 3 or 4 years. It's something that Carolina has taken part in. Highlights for that though, and I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna hit everything. I'll try to maybe highlight the top 10s. We had a few outside of that, but again, I'm for the interest of not, trying to get a little repetitive and go through stuff. At the Tiger Pole invite though, Miles Scott finished 8th in the men's weight throw. Women's weight throw, Mackenzie Mauney had a 10th place finish. Then shot put, we had an 8th and a 9th, and I'm gonna butcher this name. I'm so sorry. NC Ufort, 8th in men's shot put. I will look up that name. I'll try to look up that name and correct pronunciation in the past, or in going forward on that one. But and then Cooper Williams, 9th men's shot put. Women's shot put, Skylar Bowman, always strong finish in there, 3rd place finish. And it's the Skylar's throw was a personal record and also 7th all time in UNC history on that. Then flipping to the David Hemmery Valentine invite up in Boston. And this is big time, folks. This is big time. Men's 3,000 meter, the 3K. Colton Sands finished 2nd in that event. And okay, let me set the stage. Colton's time, 3,000 in the 3,000 meter, the 3K, 7 minutes, 34.05 seconds. That is the 4th fastest time in NCAA history. And Colton finished 2nd in that race. So obviously, the winner of that, who I don't have on this because I didn't keep up with who the winner was. The winner obviously is the 3rd place time in NCAA history. It is worth noting that the 2 fastest times in the NCAA history in 3K, are Tar Heels, former Tar Heels from last year, and the most recent men's Patterson Medal recipients, Ethan Strand, Parker Wolf. Patterson Medal says it all you need to know. Again, those fellas, multiple time NCAA and ACC and NCAA champions in various distance events, be it cross country, indoor outdoor track. Ethan and Parker are 1 and 2 in NCAA history. So we have 3 of the top 4 now in NCAA history in men's 3K. So that's big time. That is big time. Men's 5,000 meter, Tomer Tarragano finished 7th. But in that 7th place finish is also the 3rd fastest men's 5,000 meter time in UNC history. There in the Darius Dixon invite, and I'm going to apologize because I don't know where that one was. I don't remember where that one exactly was. But in that, we had the men's 400 meters. Evan Pardue finished 3rd. The men's 400 meter invite, Killian Fahey 6th, Nick Steed 8th. Women's pole vault saw Peyton Berryman finish 7th. And the women's pole vault elite event saw Maddie Kelly with a 2nd place finish, and Annie Kerr continuing strong season in pole vault with an 8th place finish there. Those events are going to roll on. We'll talk some more about those on Saturday because the competition continued on Saturday for indoor track and field. But rolling on Friday in Chapel Hill, number 8 men's lacrosse took on High Point and got the 20-9 victory on the strength of Dominic Pietramala's 7-goal performance. So 7 goals, that's a lot. 2-0 moves Carolina 2-0 men's lacrosse and 2-0 on the season now. Like I said, it's early season. You generally you expect wins because it's, let's face it, most of the time it's weaker. It's opponents that aren't the same caliber as we are necessarily. But I've talked about it. I think men's lacrosse is going to be really strong this year. I think it's going to be the best team we've had in a while, and it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if we're talking deep NCAA tournament run for men's lacrosse come the end of the season. So just some kind of highlights off of that. Like I said, Dom, 7 goals and an assist to lead. Owen Duffy, 4 assists, and his first goal of the season, led the team with the 4 assists. Brady Wambach, 16 face-off wins, 10 ground balls. Josh Marcus got the win, making in goal 4 saves through 3 quarters. And in relief, Kent Good and Brayson Wilson also had 5 stops total. So awesome effort there. 2-0 for the 13th straight season for men's lacrosse. And it's just going to keep rolling. I have a feeling it's just going to keep rolling from there. We'll talk about another men's lacrosse contest that took place on Sunday as we get a little further into here. Like I said, I'm going to turn the page on the softball. I kind of highlighted the huge scoring, and like I said, we'll talk more about that in our new Hill Brothers Full Count Carolina that covers baseball and primarily baseball and softball. So we'll talk about that a little more. Gymnastics was in action in Chapel Hill on Friday night, taking on State. Said, if you remember what I said the previous week that I wasn't able to record with the volleyball tournament, we had actually took on State at State. Took a loss on that one. Coming in, Carolina number 13, NC State number 21. We did have 3 Tar Heels take home. Event titles. But overall, Carolina lost by, I think it was, we overall lost that one. So it was, again, State's typically tough in gymnastics. And I hate to say it, but I think this is one of those things that, one of those events or one of those sports where they've kind of had us for a little bit, even when we've come in higher ranked. And the ranking, again, and like I said, I've said this before, but just to kind of reiterate that so you understand, rankings in gymnastics basically are based off of average team score. So that's how the rankings are figured out for the road to nationals. It's just taking your team score for each meet and averaging out that to get that. So took a loss by 0.3 if I remember correctly to State on this past Friday. But again, noteworthy of that, we did have event titles and event winners. Jojo Valahovic took home the event title for the balance beam and the bars, and Sydney Seabrooks got first place on floor, and Gwen Fink first place in all around. So, with the loss, comes continued success, and we're still posting good scores week in and week out, and the rankings reflect that. So we'll keep it rolling, keep on rolling. We're gonna talk about another. There's another gymnastics meet that, as I'm recording now, we'll talk about it in a few minutes. But there is something else going on as I record now, and I won't have the results. Obviously for this, but I didn't want to hold up and wait too long to record. Because then it cuts down on the time for production to be able to get this out on Monday for y'all. Continuing with the Friday action, wrestling, ranked number 13 in the nation, still traveled up to Blacksburg, taking on 6th ranked Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech at this point in time, highest ranked team in the ACC, and Carolina took the 29-9 loss. ACC, I've talked about it. ACC in the past, ACC has some really strong teams at the top The top teams in the ACC are very strong nationally. And I'll be quite honest with you, we haven't performed well against most of those teams. We really haven't. Like I said, I mean, we're looking at now, we've got some ranked wins this year, obviously, that weren't in the ACC, but these weren't in the ACC. We had an upset against Northern Iowa when we were out on that trip out there where we wrestled Nebraska, who was 6th in the country at the time, and then Northern Iowa, who was, I believe, 12th in the country or so at the time. I forget the rankings. It's been a while now. We got the win over Northern Iowa out there, which was a big one on the road. But as we've come back and, a ranked West Virginia squad, got a win there. But when it comes to ACC ranked opponents, we just haven't fared well this year. We're a young team. I said it coming into the season, if you remember back, I would be really interested to see how things played out because we were looking at a lot of freshmen and redshirt freshmen that are in action. And it's a good thing, it's going to build. We're going to be better for it in the long run. This season, we started out really well. Obviously, like I talked about, we had a great start to the season. ACC, we've taken our lumps. This drops us to 9-4 overall, 2-3 in the ACC. I believe it clinches at least a share of the regular season title for Virginia Tech. Last year, we were in a 3-way tie for the regular season title with us, Virginia Tech, and State all shared that title. But we did have a couple performances that I thought were really great. And there were a couple guys out as I go through. We had a couple guys that are some of our ranked guys that actually did not wrestle in this particular meet. And you're going to find that with wrestling sometimes. It's a little bit of a game sometimes especially when you get towards later in the season. You got to keep your eye on the prize. And the eye on the prize is ACCs and NCAAs. So you get towards the end of the season and you're trying, I don't want to say load management like it is and like you find in the NBA, but you kind of wrestling is such a grueling and taxing sport, especially when you come to tournaments like the ACC and the NCAA tournaments when you're going and going and going and going. And so we actually did, yeah. I mean, we rested Ethan Oakley who was our ranked 133, and we also rested Luke Simcox, our ranked 141. Of note, though, at 141, Nick O'Neill stepped in for Luke, took on the number 22 ranked wrestler in the country from VT, and pinned him. So that's huge. That's huge for Nick. It's got to be a huge boost on Nick's confidence. And we also had another wrestler at 174, Colin Kerrigan, knocked off the number 30 ranked wrestler in the country from Virginia Tech. So those are the two I really wanted to call out Nick and Colin for knocking off the ranked opponents. Flip side of the coin, Bryce Hepner at 165, Jake Daly at 184. Bryce number 12 ranked, Jake number 13 ranked. Both lost to opponents who were ranked in the 30s, 33 and 32 respectively. It's going to happen. I get it. It happens. It's wrestling. But that kind of thing, I mean, if you're going to have any hopes of knocking off the number 6 team in the nation, you got to win the ones where you're ranked higher. And that really does tell the tale of the 29-9 loss there. But no rest for the weary. No rest for the weary. Staff will hit the wrestling room with the guys and be ready for this coming week, for senior night this coming week, which we'll talk about towards the end. Yeah, you just got to shake it off, keep working. So. Again, like I said, that's softball, which we're not going to hit. Continuation of the fencing at the February North American Cup event in Cincinnati on Friday at Friday notable finishes. Notable finishes. And you remember these when I say these finishes, and we're talking about, you hear a number like a 41 or a 35. For instance, the junior women's épée event on Friday. 170 fencers in that event. Carolina had that's got to be wrong. A 41st finish from Mia Somatritsky and a 45th place finish from Caitlin Zonga. Again, out of 170. So that's, you might hear 41, 45 and be like, but do the math on the percentages there. That's a good. Those are really noteworthy finishes with as many fencers or as many fencers as are participating in these events. Division I men's saber, 25th place finish for Vasco Atanasov. That's 25th out of 209 fencers. So, and then wrapping up Friday, junior women's saber, 30th place finish for Samantha Mariash, and that's 30th out of 162 fencers. So again, good work there. Rolling into Saturday. Saturday, the finishers were a little lower down. I'm not going to call them out. They're, still are high up, but we're looking at men's épée with 121, 124, 219 finishes. So those are getting down there. But again, it's a tough thing. And if you haven't ever watched fencing, don't even have to check out Carolina. Just go YouTube fencing and, NCAA fencing or whatever, or Olympics when the Summer Olympics are on, check it out. It's really interesting. It's an interesting sport, and it's a sport that I am very, very new to and keeping track with and trying to learn more about. But it's interesting. Division I men's full. Yanni Samiklis, 69th place finish. Hope I didn't butcher the name too bad. Junior women's full, 81st place finish for Fiona Lee. Those were Saturday results on that for the fencing for the February NAC, the North American Cup. And that's going to continue. We're going to close that out on Sunday, which we'll get to as we're running down. But also on Saturday, continued the track, the indoor track and field stuff. We had a different meet that we took place in, 3 different meets, I believe, on Valentine's Day. Yep. Again, there's a lot of track, it can be a little overwhelming with the results and stuff. And I'm trying not to bore y'all too much, but I want to call out the finishes because we're looking at some good top 10 finishes in here. The ASICS Sound event, field events, men's 800 meter, Aiden Neal took home the gold in that with a 5th all-time time for Carolina. Luke Pash came in 5th, his debut in that event. Joe Sapone 7th, Henry Strand 8th in that event. Women's 800 meter, same event for the ASICS Sound. Reese Dalton making her event debut for 800 meters, came home 1st. Allie DeLisi with a personal record time in 2nd. Cassidy Scott 5th in the event. Women's mile track college debut, 5th place finish for Julia Scrudato. Outside the 20 there. Men's 3,000 meter, 5th place finish for Robert Matura, 6th for Joe Barrett, 7th for Jack Bowen. Women's 5,000 meter or the 5K, Bryn Brown with a 2nd place finish. Sierra Shaw came in 4th, Maddie Gardner 8th. So again, rolling the top tens for indoor track and field, especially the distance. I talked about it again, stuff I think I'm pretty sure I've talked about in the past. The last few years, especially Carolina in distance when it comes to track and field, indoor, outdoor, as well as cross country has been really strong. We've talked about it, I was just talking about it when I was talking about Colton's time in that event in the 5,000, and being a top 4th place time in NCAA history, 1st and 2nd place being Tar Heels as well. There's for whatever reason, we're just really strong there, and it's awesome. But it's like, it just keeps rolling. New athletes keep coming in. We're getting them transfer athletes and athletes that are homegrown, so to speak, that start and finish their careers at Carolina. But I say that with women's mile, Vera Schoberg, who is a transfer in this year, came from Boston University, already a highly touted and highly decorated runner, finished first in the women's mile with a UNC record time in the mile. So again, the distance running for Carolina lately in track and field and cross country has been so strong. Sydney Mascarella, third place time, second fastest all time in the women's mile. Michaela Page, women's 800 meter invite. Michaela has had a great few years. Sixth place in that event with the fifth fastest time in NCAA history that she recorded on the way to that finish. Then rolling into the continuation in the Tiger Paw invite down in Clemson, men's shot put invite, Ethan Richter, 8th place, women's weight throw. Wow, it's not a win. Kosi Umara had been on a run of like 3 or 4 straight events with a win. 4th place finish on this one, but still a third all-time personal record distance on the throw for Kosi, and a third all-time time in that event for Carolina. So again, it just shows you the things, the competition ramps up, and especially in some of these bigger events. Kosi had been on the run with 3 or 4 straight wins in events that she had been in. This 4th place was a personal record time, and it was just 4th. So it just shows you the competition is going to ramp up, especially as we're starting to get to the ACCs and the NCAAs for indoor track and field, which are really right around the corner. And then the Darius Dixon invite continued. The women's 600, good gracious, that would be a terrible hurdle event. The women's 60 meter hurdles, Carolina has been really strong in this all year, and it's been the trio of athletes doing it and trading off order and wins. Kalani Witherspoon took first in the event this time. Aaliyah Berry came third. Tori Goodson 5th. Their names have been, I've mentioned their names every week when we talk about women's 60 meter hurdles because they're there. And I think, there's been at least one time this year where they finished 1, 2, 3 in an event and swept the podium. So men's 200 meter invite, Donovan Calhoun with a 5th place finish. Kyle Archie took home the gold in the win for men's high jump. And then the men's 400 meter relay, the Carolina team of Evan Pardue, Donovan Calhoun, Killian Fahey, and Nick Steed, came in first. So got the win in that event. So track and field stuff continues. It's always interesting. There's always a lot going on because, like I said, we wind up splitting the team at the squad out going to various events. And so it's always interesting. It's a lot to keep up with, but it's interesting nonetheless. And that rolls us into the action for Sunday. A few things taking place on Sunday. Number 8 men's lacrosse continued in Chapel Hill at Dorrance Field, taking on Iona and cruised to the 23-7 win. Just a balanced effort from Carolina on that one. Improves us to 3-0 in the season. Iona falls to 0-4 early in the season. I'm trying to look for the highlights real quick. We finished the first period on a 4-0 burst, 2 goals by Owen Duffy. Again, a name that you keep hearing because, like I said, that's one of the Tewaaraton, one of the trio of Carolina men's lacrosse athletes that are on the watch list for the Tewaaraton. Owen led Carolina 3 goals and 5 assists. 17 players scored a goal. 5 of them recorded multiple goals. Had a trio of goalkeepers: Josh Marcus, Kent Good, Brayson Wilson. 6 saves on the day, combined for 6 saves on the day. Brady Wambach continuing the face-off, strong face-off. 18 to 20 at the face-off with 17 ground balls. So it was actually the first all-time meeting between the two programs. Interesting. Owen Duffy, of note, has recorded at least 1 point in all 30 of his career games at Carolina. And they'll continue on next week. And we'll talk about that again. We'll talk about that as we roll. Women's basketball traveled to Cameron to take on Duke. 21 women's basketball ranked women's basketball team. Duke number 11. A back and forth battle. Comeback, a little bit of a comeback bid from Carolina. Fell short. Lost 72 to 68. So a little bit of a heartbreaker. Of note, though, and again, I'm not making excuses. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm just going to kind of point out some things and that are worth noting. And you know, who knows what would happen if Sir Butts for candy and nuts. We'd all have a wonderful Christmas. But you know, no Renee Kelly for third straight game. Carolina, the end of the second quarter was terrible. I mean, it was awful. I really think, you know, ifs and buts, not excuses. But Duke ended the second quarter second quarter first half, however you want to look at it, on a 13-0 run, and then took an 8-point lead, 41 to 33 into halftime. You know, do the math there. Just, you know, save that run, save that crazy run. You know, maybe we win. You know, if you're looking at it pure surface of numbers, yeah, probably so. But you know, there's a lot of things that go into wins and losses. It's not just it's never really always just one thing. It's kind of you can always say, well, if that had happened, well, yeah, but there's other things that go into it. Again, you know, number 11, you know, you'd like to go with high ranked team, especially in Cameron. You'd like to go in there and take the win. But the team still battled. You know, they had that issue. Like I said, gave up the big run at the end of the first half. Went in down. Came back and fought. There was 1 point, and I think, you know, we were down. At this particular point, we were down 61-65. But at the 4:41 mark in the fourth quarter, we got a tech foul called on India Navarre. She slammed the ball down after an offensive foul was called against her. To me, I saw a replay. I didn't see it live volleyball practice, but I saw a replay, and it looked like the right call. So I get emotion. India's done a lot of good things this year. We wouldn't be where we are without her. As a senior leader, you got to control emotions a little better than that. I know I'm not out there. It's easier said than done. It's Carolina. It's Duke. And emotions run high. But, you know, you would have liked to seen her, you know, collect herself, control herself a little more. She's a human being, though, and it happens. The other thing of note, and I'm not going to beat on this. I'm not going to beat the drum because, you know, there was a point, and I hasten to mention it, but I'm going to because I've seen Carolina fans pointing it out on social media already. You know, it got called out by a lot of Duke fans after the men's basketball game the other week. Again, something I don't cover on this, but I'm going to, for context, one foul call against us, I believe, in the second half of that game, and Duke fans were screaming. Right or wrong, Duke fans were, you know, right or wrong, one foul call. Duke fans were screaming. But Carolina, and try this stat on for size. In the whole game, the entirety of the game, we did not shoot one free throw. Did not make a free throw attempt. Duke was called for 9 fouls total. Duke attempted 21 free throws, made 17 of them. Only the third time, I saw this from ESPN, only the third time this century an ACC team hasn't attempted a field goal or a free throw in a game. don't watch this, or if whoever, I'm not making excuses because the game is not won or lost on one single thing. But you can sure look at that and say, daggone. Surely that, surely something was missed there. Again, I didn't see, I only was able to catch highlights because I was at my daughter's volleyball practice during the game. But think about it. I mean, we attempted 70 field goals. We attempted 70 field goals. We got 19 offensive rebounds. And no fouls in there. So it's the way it goes. You hate it. It's a rivalry. Turn the page. You just got to turn the page. That moves Carolina to 21-6 on the season, 10-4 in the ACC. Duke now 19-6, and 14-0 in the ACC. So, like I said, turn the page and on to the next one. That's all you can do. And then, like I said, excuse me, I'm losing. Should have got some water. I need to learn for these longer ones like this, because that started out when things were short and it was like 30 minutes because I didn't have that much to talk about. But now as the spring season is in full swing, there's some winter finishing up and the spring's in full swing, starting to get in full swing. There's a lot going on, and I'm approaching like an hour of recording time now. Throat starts to get dry. So closing out the fencing closed out the February North American Cup in Cincinnati with some noteworthy finishes. In fact, a top 10 finish, the second finish in the top 25 of the event for Vasco. I keep butchering the name, man. Sorry. For Vasco Atanasov, finished 9th in the junior men's saber. So like I said, that makes up the second finish in the top 25 in the event in the February NAC for Vasco. So awesome work there. What else can you say? Like I said, hopefully that momentum is going to keep rolling into the ACC championships, which are coming up. Women's Division I, women's épée, 33rd place finish for Nicole Maluski, 129th for Mia Smotritsky. God, I got to get better with these names. It's embarrassing myself. And I, again, not trying to disrespect the student athletes, but and then junior men's full 57th place finish for Ivan Radoslavov, 97th place for Aiden Song, and 154th place for Yanni Smiklis. Sorry. So anyway, that's again strong event there, and they're going to be rolling and getting ready for the ACCs and the NCAAs. NCAA's coming up in very short order, so looking forward to that and them getting rolling on that stuff. Gymnastics, actually, as we speak right now, I mentioned it before, is competing in the Metroplex Challenge in Fort Worth, Texas. Number 13 still. Like I said, we're competing against number 17 Auburn, Boise State, and yet again for the third time in the last 2 weeks, number 21 NC State. So we'll see how that sticks out and finishes out. If you're interested, we competed there last year, actually, again in a dual meet against eventual national champions Oklahoma, and had a score of 196.200 at the meet. So hopefully our average this year has been higher than that. So hopefully we're looking to improve on that, and we'll see how that goes. Check out if you want to, you can check out Go Heels. I'll try to touch on that I'll touch on that next week. But I'll also, if you want to, in real time tonight when it's finished, I'll have results posted. I'll post results on my Twitter account as well. if you're interested in checking that out. Swimming and diving is kicking off the ACC championships today. In fact, with diving, and we've already had the 3 meter finish up, and Sophia Knight, our own Sophia Knight, finished 6th in the 3 meter event, women's diving event at the ACC championships. Then we had 4 men. Actually, yeah, I'm going to try to read this off so I don't miss stuff. We had 4 men that competed in the 1 meter today. Chris Bowler was the high finish for us at 14th. Cyril Mejia, 23rd. Rodolfo Vasquez Montano, 27th. Carter Lofton, 39th in that event. We'll continue. They're going to continue. The diving part continues. The swimming portion of the championships we'll pick up in a few more days. Diving continues tomorrow. And again, we'll talk about that as we roll into the next little bit. And that actually, folks, is it for the week. I'm going to try to find my paper so I can finish it out strong for y'all. For the schedule coming up this week, like I said, Monday, the ACC diving championships are going to continue. They're taking place in Atlanta. On Tuesday, swimming and diving both. Swimming kicks off. Swimming events kick off in Atlanta for the ACC championships. Diving is going to finish up on Tuesday. Also on Tuesday, women's tennis is taking on Elon at 4 p.m. in Chapel Hill at the Tuning Tennis Center. Wednesday and Thursday, the ACC swimming championships continue, and swimming events continue in Atlanta. Yep, and they're still going to continue. That's not going to wrap up yet. Also Thursday, women's basketball is taking on Virginia Tech at 6 p.m. up in Blacksburg. It's going to be broadcast on ACC Network. Rolling into the busy weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday slate of events. Indoor track and field's got a split team events. 2 different events taking place. One with the Alex Wilson Invitational up at Notre Dame, and also the Virginia Tech Challenge in Blacksburg. Swimming and diving championships are going to continue with the swimming events in Atlanta on Friday. Women's lacrosse in Chapel Hill against Ohio State at 1:30. Broadcast on ACC Network Extra if you want to check that out. Women's tennis versus Syracuse in Chapel Hill at the Tuning Tennis Center on Friday at 3 p.m. Men's lacrosse versus Johns Hopkins. Dorrance Field in Chapel Hill, 5 p.m. Broadcast on ACC Network. So that's a good one there. Wrestling, back in action in Chapel Hill, 7 p.m. against Stanford Cardinal. Always an interesting one, considering that's where Coach Rob Cole came back to his alma mater. He was at Stanford prior to coming to Carolina to coach after he won a national championship here as a wrestler. And that's going to be senior night. So I will personally tell you, out of the events that are taking place in Chapel Hill, I'm going to be at that one for sure. Senior night for wrestling, not going to miss it. And gymnastics travels out to Berkeley to take on Cal. It's a 10:30 time, and it's going to be broadcast on ACC Network Extra if you want to check out the gymnastics action. Rolling into Saturday, fencing kicks off the ACC championships in Durham. Indoor track and field continues with the Alex Wilson Invite at Notre Dame, the Virginia Tech Challenge up in Blacksburg. The last day, swimming and diving, the swimming events for the ACC championships conclude in Atlanta on Saturday. And then men's soccer travels to Winston-Salem to take on Wake Forest at 3 p.m. And wrapping up the upcoming week events on Sunday, fencing concludes the ACC championships in Durham. Women's basketball back in action in Chapel Hill, Carmichael at noon versus Pitt, going to be broadcast on ACC Network. Women's lacrosse does not travel. Women's lacrosse at noon, Dorrance Field and Chapel Hill taking on Louisville. That's going to be slated to be broadcast on ACC Network Extra. Women's tennis, noon, traveling up to Champaign to take on Illinois, men's tennis. Can't read my chicken scratch handwriting. Men's tennis at noon on Sunday, traveling up to Champaign to take on Illinois, and then wrapping it up for the Olympic sports in the week to come. Women's tennis in Chapel Hill, Cheney Tennis Center on Sunday, 1 p.m. against Boston College. So that's the week. That's the week to be. What's coming up? Again, like I said, I'd been talking baseball and softball. I'll say it again. If you skipped over and you're just catching the end or you glossed over it, I've cut back and I'm not going to talk about them here for the sake of time and repetitiveness, because we've launched the Hill Brothers. We've launched the Full Count Carolina podcast, which we'll record on Thursday nights, drop on Fridays to cover those sports. So a little more in depth. So it frees me up a little bit so these don't take quite as long, because, again, I'm already over an hour. And then the spring countdown, the season openers countdown now is down to just a couple, but I'm going to keep running it till they're both at 0. So rowing kicks off in 26 days from Monday now, and outdoor track and field will kick off in 38 days. So, folks, that's it. I appreciate y'all taking the time to join me and listen to me again, talk about the Olympic sports. Again, the whole point of this is just to bring the awareness and the spotlight, if you will, pun intended, actually, to the Olympic sports at Carolina. The embarrassment of riches that we have in all our athletic programs that we're really, really good in. So again, anything you want to see more of, less of, give me your suggestions. I can take constructive criticism. So give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts. What would make this better? What would make this better for you? And that's what we want to do. We want to bring you the best content possible. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, tell your friends about it. YouTube channel, Hill Brothers. Got a lot of stuff going on now. Like I said, launching out the baseball and softball stuff too, trying to do that. Football stuff comes up. We'll continue to do some stuff. Basketball post-game reactions and things like that, as well as news stuff. Nathan did pop back on this week. If you missed it, he recorded a short to talk about the Caleb Wilson injury. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. I told y'all he was still going to be around, and he told y'all he'll still be around. He'll pop up from time to time. He was on a cruise ship when he did that. So we appreciate him doing that and jumping on that. And I'm going to give it one last shout out though for y'all. If you're in the need for some hygiene products, go ahead. Go check out the folks at K-Bar Soap. Chris, veteran owned, operated, handmade soap. Bunch of different kinds, or what do you want to say? Scents. That's the right word. Bunch of different scents. I've said it before. If you've seen that, so Whiskey and Bad Decisions is my favorite, but there's Napalm and the AM and a bunch of other ones. So ditch the bar, grab a grenade. There's a bunch of other products too. So he's got some other hygiene products, some beard care stuff. Be sure to use the promo code HB15 for 15% off that. And that's it for this week, y'all. And I'll talk to you next week. And as always, go Heels.